It definitely feels a little weird to just share my divorce story. I don't know if I've ever like told it all in one chunk. But I guess you start at the beginning when you first started dating. I met him, my ex-husband, at his Christmas party. My roommate and I got invited to his Christmas party, and we went, and we were these cute young little things in New York City. And um, I'd never seen somebody so handsome with such dark hair and these amazing eyebrows. And he just kind of swept me off my feet. The day after New Year's, he calls me and says, "Hi, I met you at my Christmas party and I was wondering if you wanted to go out." And it was so wild. My friends and I had gone to see a tarot card reader that day, which is silly, down in the East Village. And this tarot card reader had told me that I was going to get a phone call that was going to change my life. So I come home on my answering machine to that message. I'm like, oh my God. So we went out, we went ice skating in Central Park. It was so romantic. We traveled, we went all over the place. Like this man just swept me off my feet. I definitely felt like, um, I don't know, it felt very much like a fairy tale. On Valentine's Day, my mom calls and says, "I think you're going to get engaged tonight." And I'm like, nobody gets engaged on Valentine's Day. My roommate's like, "I think you're getting engaged on Valentine's Day." I'm like, nobody gets engaged on Valentine's Day. That's so cliche. I got engaged on Valentine's Day. And it was, it totally took me by surprise. Probably a year, like a little over a year in, maybe a year and a couple months. And I was 24. And we went along, and, everything was fun and magical. And then I started having this like feeling inside, like, I don't know if this is the right thing. But I kept going along, and, getting married, there's a whole energy that takes you. Like you're in this river and it's going fast, and you're just parties after, outfits after all of the stuff. And you're just going, going, going. But I just had this like feeling inside. I remember I sat him down. It was probably, maybe 2 months before we were getting married, maybe a month and a half. And I said, "Hey, I need you to promise me that if I ever come to you and say, I want a divorce, that you're going to just say no. Nope, 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 nope. We are not getting divorced. We will figure it out. But I need you to make me this promise that if I ever say that to you, you will tell me no." And I think in that moment, I really knew he wasn't maybe my person, but I loved him so much, and he loved me so much. And he agreed. He said, "Of course." I think he probably thought I was a little bit crazy. Um, and then the night before our wedding, it's late. I tell my mom, "Mom, I don't know. I don't think I should do this. I don't think I should go through this." And she says, "Okay, well, you are really tired. So go to bed. And if you wake up tomorrow morning, and you still don't want to get married, you don't have to. It's no problem." So I go to bed, grateful for that kind of reassurance. She kind of really leaned into my anxiety. As a therapist now, I know like that was her way of leaning into my fear, and gave it permission. So as soon as I had permission, I didn't necessarily have to go that direction. I woke up the next morning, got ready, all the fun stuff, and go through the ceremony. And after the ceremony, I'm like dry heaving, like just my body was telling me, "You've made a mistake." But I go along, and we are fun and having a blast, and we move in together. And the first conflict is when we're moving in together and we're putting our kitchen together. And there was just such this power struggle between us. It was over glasses where they went in the kitchen, but it was so, so strong. A friend of ours was over, and he's like, "Hey, let's just go get a margarita to break up the energy." So that we go on, the glasses get put away, um, and we decide to um, travel around the world. And I mean, we had like this beautiful, beautiful, magical life. We had so many fun friends. We were always entertaining, having parties. We were really, really good friends, and we had a lot of fun together. And so we were backpacking around the world for a year. And during that year, it's hard, like backpacking, being away from your family, all the different smells and experiences. It was hard. And during that time, we were exposed to lots of things and things that were opening up my eyes and opening up the world to me and for him too, but in different ways. And you could feel this thing, the power struggle kind of going on, whether to, you know, have a glass of wine or buy a soda. Like there was just this tightness and this dynamic that was really awful. I remember getting off this ferry in India saying, like, maybe we should just go home and get divorced. Like, that very catastrophic thinking, like this is awful. And we obviously didn't. We came home and moved back to New York. And oh, no, we moved back to Denver actually. And we're living in Denver. And you could feel the tension. I remember saying to him, I feel so lonely. And it was like, well, you should, dinner, you should just go get, have dinner with a friend. And I think I was trying to tell him that I felt really lonely in our marriage. I wasn't a therapist then. I didn't have the language. But I was trying. And then I get in my head, like, look, we were really happy in New York City. We need to get back to New York City. We'll leave Denver. Let's go. So we moved back to New York City. And, we're having fun, but you can feel just like the distance. It's like, I talk a lot about how people start growing apart, and you could really feel that, but not in a like this profound way, but like in this very subtle way. And we decide later that year, after we moved to New York, to take some time apart, like a trial separation. It wasn't exactly that, but that's what it was. And I was in Boulder at the time, and he was in New York City, and September 11th happened. And A, I couldn't believe it, but B, this thing that really became obvious, this thing that showed up was I didn't have that immediate, like, get in my car and drive to New York feeling. Obviously, nobody was flying, and, the world has shut down, but I don't know. I didn't have that like drive to go and be protective and be connected. I eventually went back a couple weeks later, and you could just feel that distance. I remember there was this New York Times magazine article about how September 11th was this very defining moment for many, many marriages. And I remember reading that and being like, not, not paying attention to it, but obviously I remember it today. And then just this feeling of tremendous sadness, tremendous depression, hopelessness, the aloneness, the loneliness. I remember being in the shower after yoga one morning and just crying and crying and crying. I just felt so incredibly heartbroken and sad and just lonely. And I remember saying to myself in the shower, if you feel like this in a month, you can kill yourself. Obviously, I didn't. But I think that feeling of being scared and alone and really like feeling trapped and hopeless and just not knowing what to do. And I really, really felt this deep commitment to staying married and not getting divorced. I think it was maybe even more the commitment. I think there's something so painful when you deeply, deeply love someone And you know it's not right. And so, we're struggling through that. And I started not wanting to go out and be with friends. And we started spending actually a lot of time just together. The thing we could do well together was go to the movies. Seems so silly, but like we love to go to the movies together, and we could just go and be together and not have to talk, not have to be with the sadness, be with this this growing feeling of this isn't working, and not for like any reason. It just, maybe it was just like getting married young. I got married when I was just turned 25. But it was just like we started to like really grow apart, and that distance was so painful. And then, so we met with lawyers and we separated our stuff. But we were still so energetically connected. It was weird. I remember sitting down with this lawyer and him saying, divorce is really expensive, and you will not have the financial resources that you have when you're married. It's a very expensive experience. And obviously I was afraid of that, but I was also young. I didn't think so much about that. Didn't think about what I was negotiating. And, in some ways I was the one who wanted to get divorced. It, in some ways, didn't even feel fair to be even having financial conversations. And but we did. And I was so lost. I was so broken. I didn't know what to do. I know I needed to leave New York City. I was crossing Amsterdam Avenue, and it was after September 11th, and I'm looking downtown. And for whatever reason, all the lights were timed, and there were no cars on the road. I could see all the way downtown, and there was nobody on the road. And I just saw this vast open space. And being from Colorado, I was used to having, vistas. And when I saw that, I was like, I gotta go. I gotta leave. I gotta leave New York. But going home to Colorado just felt like it compounded the failure that I was feeling. The feeling of, I felt like a total failure. But I moved all my stuff to Denver. And I decided, I didn't know what I was doing. I was teaching yoga at the time. I had been in advertising before that, but I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was making like $50 a class, which is not enough money to live on. And I decided I would go to this meditation retreat out in California, in Marin County, outside of San Francisco. And it was a 16-day retreat, this beautiful, beautiful place called Spirit Rock Meditation Center. It feels like a little sanctuary even today. I had no idea it's going to be so emotional telling this story, especially because it's a story I'm grateful for. Anyway, I'm at Spirit Rock and I'm meditating, and meditation it's silent, but there's a lot of freaking noise going on in your head. And I kept sitting there like on my cushion, and then I just like pop up and I'm like, I got to go back to New York. I don't know what I'm doing. I've got to go back to David. I've got to go back. I've got to go back. And then I was like, no, go. Just go sit back down. Just go sit back down. And then the thought would arise, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? What am I going to do? Should I open a yoga studio in Colorado? What should I do? What should I do? Like just tremendous amount of anxiety and like that feeling of free falling. Like, I don't know where I'm going to land or how I'm going to land, if I'm going to even survive landing. And this happened over 16 days. I don't remember what day in to the retreat, but I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I have this feeling like there's a bolt of lightning that comes in through the top of my head, like through my spine, through my body. And um, it's this feeling of, or this like, oh, I'm going to be a therapist. I'm going to go to grad school and I'm going to be a therapist. I knew nothing about how to get into grads. I knew nothing about it, but I'd been sitting there with this. Every time I was like, what am I going to do? I had this mantra that came from this wiser part of me that I wasn't in touch with, but was showing up. And it just kept saying, I know you will know when you know it. I know. I know you will know when you know it. I just know. And it was like this mantra of like, it's okay, just sit here. It's okay. It will come to you. You'll know. And so when that bolt of lightning came through, I knew. It's like I couldn't not hear it. It was so powerful. It was so loud. It was a physical feeling. It was a mental, but it was everything in my body. It was like there was clarity. And I applied to grad school and like that even was kind of miraculous. Like admissions had closed. I'd wanted to go to a kind of a more holistic, non-traditional, non-dual kind of grad school where there was both the mental, but the emotional, the physical, the spiritual included. And I found this, there was a school in Boulder called the Naropa Institute, but going back to Colorado felt like I couldn't do it. The failure was just too profound. And then there was a school in San Francisco called the California Institute of Integral Studies. And I'm like, that's my school. I like everything was just like dominoes lining up. And on this retreat, I meet somebody, of course. I'm like this like flailing waif of myself. And, you know, the first person to come along that had strength and was handsome, like just instantly I was like, okay, just add water into relationship. Here I go. You like me? You're cute. Let's do it. And I dated this man for a number of years and all through like at least the first beginning of grad school. And during this time, Dave and I still weren't divorced yet. It took a while. It took like 16 months or something. He left New York, he moved to LA, and we were staying in contact. Like when I say we loved each other, we like loved each other. So I eventually broke up with the guy from the retreat. And I remember him saying, he's like, you and Dave would ever get back together. And I was like, how do you know? I remember when I left New York, like the day the movers came, I called my friend Joni. I was on the train back into the city and I was like, do people who get divorced, do they ever get remarried? Like, that's a thing, right? Like, maybe we just need to get divorced for a little bit so we can get remarried. Like, there was always, it was like we couldn't let go of each other. And I couldn't let go of him and he couldn't let go of me. We were both like going on with our lives and doing things, but we just kept staying connected. We tried again at one point. He's living in LA, I'm in San Francisco, and I thought like, okay, maybe I like work 2 days in San Francisco with my clients and I live the other 5 days down in LA with him. And I just do this back and forth thing. And we kept trying and we kept trying. And I would date somebody, he would date somebody, but we were still so energetically connected. And I remember it was in like March of 2007, at the beginning of the month. He called and said, hey, Danae, should I come to San Francisco for Easter? And Easter was a big holiday for us. And it was kind of one of those wild moments where you just get like another sense of an insight. And I said, no, you can't come. You can't come for Easter. you can't come for Easter because I know. You can't come for Easter because I know we don't have children together. I want to be a mom, and I know I don't do that with you. And I want you to be a dad. And I know you don't do that with me. And if you come to San Francisco, it is delaying that for both of us. And at this point, I think I'm like 35, turning 36 later that year. And I said, I love you so much, and we can't do that. We can't keep doing this. And he was like, okay. I think he asked me one more time, and I was like, no, you do this with somebody else, and I do this with somebody else. That month, he met the woman he's married. And then 2 months later, I met my Chris. It was wild. It was so amazing. And Chris and I are dating, and I had decided when I met Chris, after I'd said to David, like, this is over, I decided I wanted to date people in a way that I had never dated in my entire life. I had always dated in a way that was like, oh, you like me. Okay, let me do all my song and dance to make certain that you like me. And then once I'm sure and secure that you like me, then I'll decide whether or not I like you. And eventually it was like, I never was dated somebody where I was like, I like you. So I decided I was going to do it totally differently. I created this frequent dater club with a couple of my friends years and years ago when I'd first gotten married. And the frequent dater club was to date a bunch of people all at the same time and see who you like. There's so much anxiety when you start dating somebody that you just get anxious about whether they're texting you back or if they want to see you again. But when you have multiple dates with multiple people in a week, you don't care as much about whether or not they like you. And it really allows you to see how they perform, like how they show up, what they say, what they do. And so I was dating a bunch of other people. My kids like to say, Mom, you're a player. It wasn't, but I was definitely dating a bunch of different people at that point. And Chris was one of them. And so over that summer, like, like the cream was rising to the top. And that November, he and I had gone out to dinner, and I just had this like, oh, like, you're my person, like, every day for the rest of my life. It was like this very, very clear moment at dinner. And I hadn't met his family yet. And I don't know if he'd met mine. I guess he might have. Yeah, he had. But I went to sleep that night, and I had this dream that I was meeting my husband's mom. And in the dream, it became my husband's mom turned into my ex-husband's mom, who I was really, really close friends with. I'm still really close to her to this day. And in this dream, she tells me that my ex-husband has gotten married. And it was just, it's like one of those vivid, vivid dreams. And I woke up, and the next morning, my ex-husband calls me, and I answer the phone. I'm like, did you get engaged last night? And he says, no, Denier, I got engaged on Saturday. And this was a Thursday. It was just like, that's, I think, how deeply connected our karma was. Like, we were so energetically connected that I think I felt that way about Chris. Like, he is my forever person that night, because I think we'd finally let each other go. We'd finally energetically cut those ties. And I know I wouldn't be a therapist had I not gone through that. I know I wouldn't have met Chris had I not gone through that. I thankfully didn't kill myself. I thought it would definitely be easier to die than go through that experience. Um, but I learned so much about myself, so much about relationships, and I can honestly say that incredibly painful experience is one of the things I am most grateful for in my life. Because if none of that had happened, I wouldn't be married to the man that I'm married to, with the two beautiful children and the wonderful fluffy puppy that I have. Thanks for listening.